My name is Jake McNeese, Sergeant 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. I was 23 years old when I led the Filthy 13 into the darkness over Normandy on the night of June 5, 1944. You ever wonder what it takes to jump out of a perfectly good airplane into hell? To lead a bunch of misfits and troublemakers into combat behind enemy lines? To become so legendary that Hollywood made a movie about you, though they changed our story so much we barely recognized it? I'm about to tell you how a half-breed Indian kid from Oklahoma became the leader of the most feared demolition unit in the airborne. How 13 men, criminals, brawlers, and rebels, every one of us, became brothers. How we painted our faces like warriors, shaved our heads into Mohawks, and terrified the Germans more than any spit and polish unit ever could. The Filthy 13. They called us that because we were filthy. In language, in appearance, in attitude. We didn't shine our boots. We didn't salute officers we didn't respect. We fought, we drank, we raised hell. But when it came time to fight Germans, there wasn't a unit in the entire United States Army that could match us. I was born in Maysville, Oklahoma, 1921. My mother was 3/4 Choctaw Indian. My father was white. That made me what they called a half-breed, and in Oklahoma in the 20s, that meant you didn't quite belong anywhere. Not with the Indians on the reservation, not with the whites in town. You learned to fight early and fight often. My daddy left when I was young. Mama did her best, but we were dirt poor. I mean the kind of poor where you wore the same clothes until they fell apart, where dinner was whatever you could catch or kill, where school was something you went to when there wasn't work to be done. I learned to use my fists at 7 years old. Had to. The white kids called me Injun and wanted to fight. The Indian kids called me white boy and wanted to fight. So I fought. Got good at it too. Developed a reputation. Jake McNeese doesn't back down from anybody. Worked odd jobs from the time I could walk. Picked cotton, hauled hay, broke horses. Anything to help mama. By 14, I was doing a man's work for half a man's pay. Didn't matter. It was honest work, and we McNeeses might have been poor, but we weren't beggars. I had a mean streak a mile wide. Got in trouble with the law more than once. Bar fights mostly. Some petty theft when times got desperate. Nothing violent, nothing I'm proud of, but when you're hungry and angry and the world keeps telling you you're not good enough, you do what you have to do. 1941 came around. I was working on a ranch, breaking horses, making barely enough to survive. Then Pearl Harbor happened, December 7th. I remember hearing about it on the ranch owner's radio. Japanese planes bombing Hawaii. Americans dying. I didn't know where Pearl Harbor was. Didn't know much about world events at all. But I knew one thing. Somebody had attacked America. My America. Didn't matter that America hadn't always treated me fair. Didn't matter that I was poor and Indian and had a criminal record. It was still my country. I tried to enlist the next week. Army recruiter looked at my record, looked at me, and laughed. "We don't need troublemakers," he said. I tried again in 42. Different recruiter, same answer. Third time, I got smart. Went to a different town, used a friend's name, cleaned up my record on paper. They took me. Shipped me off to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. Basic training was supposed to break you down, build you back up into a soldier. For me, it was the easiest time I'd had in years. Regular meals, a bed, clean clothes. Sure, the sergeants yelled and made us do push-ups and run until we puked. But I'd been working like a mule since I was a kid. This was nothing. What I learned real quick was that the Army didn't like troublemakers, but they needed men who could fight, and I could fight. Hand-to-hand combat training? I've been doing that my whole life. Marksmanship? Been shooting since I was 8. Endurance? Try working a ranch from dawn to midnight. The other recruits, college boys, city kids, farm boys, they struggled. I thrived. Made private first class in record time, then corporal. The officers noticed, said I had natural leadership ability. What I had was a lifetime of not taking crap from anybody and knowing how to survive. Then came the airborne. They were looking for volunteers for this new thing, paratroopers. Jump out of airplanes behind enemy lines. Dangerous as hell. Extra pay. I signed up immediately. Jump school at Fort Benning. Now that was something. Jumping off towers, learning to pack chutes, studying wind patterns and drop zones. Most guys were terrified, not me. Seemed like the most natural thing in the world. You jump, you float, you land. Simple. My first jump, I loved it. That moment when you exit the aircraft and the prop blast hits you and suddenly you're falling through nothing but air, it's freedom. Pure freedom. For those few seconds, nothing else matters. No poverty, no prejudice, no past. Just you and the sky. I made sergeant, got assigned to the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, best damn division in the Army. And that's where I met them, the men who would become the Filthy 13. The 506th was full of good soldiers, brave men, tough men, men who followed orders and kept their uniforms pressed. I didn't fit with most of them, too rough around the edges, too willing to question authority, too much of a troublemaker. But there were others like me, misfits, men who joined the army because it was better than jail, men who fought in bars on Saturday night and showed up for formation on Monday with black eyes and busted knuckles, men who could soldier better than anyone when it mattered, but who couldn't stand the chicken shit regulations when it didn't. One by one, I found them. Or they found me. There was Jack Agnew from Chicago, tough Irish kid who'd been running with street gangs since he was 12, could pick any lock, hotwire any vehicle, and fight like a cornered rat. Chuck Plata from Pennsylvania, coal miner's son, hands like sledgehammers, quiet most of the time, but when he got mad, it took 3 MPs to bring him down. Robert Cohn from Tennessee, hillbilly who made moonshine and didn't trust anybody in authority. Best scout I ever saw, could move through the woods like a ghost. George Radecka from Ohio, former boxer, had a jaw like granite and fists that could knock out a horse. Loved to fight more than anything in the world. Joe Olaskevich from Detroit, Polish kid who'd grown up in the auto factories, could fix anything mechanical, build bombs out of spare parts, and had a vocabulary that could make a sailor blush. We kept finding each other, in the stockade after bar fights, on punishment details for insubordination, during training exercises where we'd bend or break every rule to accomplish the mission. Officers hated us, but they couldn't deny we were good soldiers when it counted. By early 1943, there were 13 of us, all troublemakers, all facing court-martials or worse for various infractions. The brass didn't know what to do with us. We were too good to discharge, too disruptive to keep in regular units. Then came Captain Charles Shettle. He was looking for volunteers for a special demolition section, high-risk missions, blowing up bridges, destroying obstacles, clearing paths for the infantry. Dangerous work. Most men wouldn't volunteer. We all did. Shettle looked at our records and laughed. "You're all criminals," he said. "Yes, sir," I replied, "but we're good at breaking things." He made me the section leader, gave us our own barracks, told us we'd train separately, work separately, and as long as we accomplished our missions, he didn't care what we did in between. That's when the Filthy 13 was born. We stopped shining our boots, stopped polishing brass, grew our hair long, didn't shave unless we felt like it. Our barracks looked like a pigsty, gear everywhere, empty bottles, dirt tracked in from the field. The regular units called us animals. We didn't care. But we trained harder than anybody. Demolitions, hand-to-hand combat, weapons, tactics. We became experts in blowing things up. Could calculate charges, set timers, destroy any structure or vehicle the Army wanted gone. We practiced until we could do it in our sleep, in the dark, under fire. We also drank harder than anybody, fought harder than anybody, and raised more hell than anybody. The MPs knew us all by name. Officers dreaded seeing us coming. But Captain Shettle protected us. As long as we performed when it mattered, he let us be. Shipped to England in September 43. Staging area for the invasion everyone knew was coming. We didn't know when or where, but we knew it was big. The biggest operation of the war. Maybe the biggest operation in human history. Training intensified. Night jumps, practice demolitions, briefings on German fortifications. We learned about Atlantic wall defenses, beach obstacles, gun emplacements. Studied maps until we could draw them from memory. The brass started talking about Normandy, northern France, fortified beaches, cliffs, bunkers, thousands of Germans waiting. They showed us photographs from reconnaissance flights. The obstacles were incredible. Steel hedgehogs on the beaches, wooden stakes in the fields, concrete walls, minefields everywhere. Our mission became clear. Jump in before the beach landings, destroy the obstacles and fortifications inland, clear paths for the paratroopers and gliders coming behind us, hold critical positions until the beach forces linked up with us. They told us casualty estimates: 30% for the airborne, 50% for the first wave on the beaches, maybe higher. Some units might be completely wiped out. We didn't care. We were the Filthy 13. We were going to jump into France, blow up everything the Germans had, and make it home for breakfast. May turned to June. The invasion was close now. You could feel it. Thousands of men, hundreds of ships and planes, all waiting for the word. The tension was incredible. Men writing last letters home, checking and rechecking equipment, trying not to think about what was coming. June 1st, they confined us to base. No more passes, no more trips to town. This was it. Final briefings began. We learned our specific targets. Drop zone near Sainte-Mère-Église, a bridge over the Douve River, German artillery positions, beach obstacles that needed destroying. We memorized every detail, every landmark, every route. June 4th, they loaded us onto the planes. Then weather delayed everything. We sat in those planes for hours, then got ordered off. Frustrating as hell. We were ready, keyed up, and then nothing. The night of June 4th, we knew tomorrow was the day. Officers confirmed it. June 5th, we jump. June 6th, the beaches. I gathered the Filthy 13 in our barracks. We'd been together for over a year now. 13 men who'd become brothers, closer than family. We'd fought together, bled together, done time in the stockade together. Tomorrow night, I said, we jump into France. Some of us might not make it back. So tonight, we're going to do something to remember. That's when someone suggested the war paint. We had some Indian blood among us, me being half Choctaw and a couple others with Cherokee or Sioux ancestry. Someone said, let's paint up like warriors, go into battle the old way. I liked that idea. Liked it a lot. We scrounged up some paint, brown, black, green from camouflage supplies. That night, we painted our faces, war stripes across cheeks and foreheads, symbols from half-remembered tribal stories. We weren't trying to be authentic or respectful. We were trying to be terrifying. Then someone grabbed scissors and started cutting hair. If we're going warrior, let's go all the way. He shaved the sides of his head, left a strip down the middle, a mohawk. Within an hour, most of us had mohawks. We looked absolutely savage, like something out of the Old West, like the warriors who'd fought the cavalry a generation before. Paint-faced, mohawked paratroopers ready to jump into Nazi-occupied France. The regular soldiers stared at us like we'd lost our minds. Officers didn't know whether to court-martial us or laugh. But Captain Shuttle, he just shook his head and smiled. You men are certifiably insane, he said. The Germans won't know what hit them. A war correspondent took photographs. We posed with our weapons, faces painted, mohawks standing tall, grinning like maniacs. Those photos would become famous later, would help inspire that Hollywood movie. But right then, we were just 13 troublemakers preparing for the biggest fight of our lives. June 5th, 1944, evening. The word came down. Tonight's the night. We geared up. Parachute, reserve chute, rifle, grenades, ammunition, demolition charges, wire cutters, knives. Each man carried over 100 pounds of equipment. We could barely walk, let alone fight, but we'd need every bit of it. I checked my men one last time, made sure every chute was packed right, every weapon loaded, every demolition charge secure. These were my brothers, my responsibility. I was bringing them into hell, and by God, I was going to do everything I could to bring them back out. We boarded the C-47s around 2200 hours. Our plane was packed tight. The Filthy 13 plus other troopers from the 506th. The roar of engines made conversation impossible. We sat in the dark, each man alone with his thoughts. I wasn't scared. I was excited. This was what we'd trained for. This was our purpose. We were going to jump into enemy territory, blow up their positions, and help win this war. Simple as that. The planes took off around 2300 hours. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all heading across the English Channel toward France. The greatest airborne invasion in history. And the Filthy 13 was leading the way. The flight took forever. Sitting in that cramped plane, weighted down with gear, breathing engine fumes and sweat, some men were praying, some were sleeping, some were staring at nothing, faces pale. I checked my weapons again. M1 Garand rifle, disassembled and strapped to my leg, .45 pistol on my hip, trench knife strapped to my chest, 6 grenades, enough demolition charges to blow up a building. I was a walking arsenal. Then the plane started taking flak. German anti-aircraft guns had found us. You could hear the explosions, feel the plane shudder. Shrapnel punched through the fuselage. A trooper near me caught a piece in the arm, started bleeding. The plane took a direct hit. Engine caught fire. The pilot was screaming on the intercom, "We're going down! We're going down!" "Stand up!" I yelled. "Hook up!" The men snapped their static lines to the cable. We were going out whether the pilot liked it or not. Burning plane or not, we had a mission. The red light came on. Get ready. Then green. Go. I was first out the door, hit the prop blast, tumbled in the air, chute deployed with a violent jerk, and suddenly I was floating through darkness over Normandy. Tracers everywhere, flak bursting in orange flowers, planes burning, spiraling down, parachutes drifting through smoke and fire. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. I looked for landmarks, nothing recognizable. We were way off target. The pilots, dodging flak and enemy fire, had scattered us all over northern France. I could see other parachutes, but not my men. We were separated. Hit the ground hard, rolled, came up with my rifle assembled and ready. Listened. German voices maybe 200 yards away. Vehicles. Dogs barking. I was alone in enemy territory, 20 miles from my drop zone, with half the German army between me and my objective. This was going to be interesting. I moved quietly through the hedgerow country. Normandy was all small fields separated by thick hedgerows, earthen walls covered in bushes and trees, perfect for ambushes. Every field could hide a German squad. Used my cricket, little metal clicker we carried for recognition. Click-clack. If you heard click-clack back, it was American. If you heard bullets, it was German. Click-clack. Nothing. Moved forward. Another hedgerow. Click-clack. Click-clack came back. I nearly shot anyway. Germans had captured some crickets and were using them in ambushes. But then a voice whispered, "Flash." "Thunder," I replied. Password and countersign. 3 troopers emerged from the shadows. Not my men, but 506th guys. Lost, disoriented, scared. "You know where we are?" one asked. "Hell if I know," I replied. "But we're not sitting here. We got a job to do." We moved toward where I thought our objective should be. Found more paratroopers. Within 2 hours, I had maybe 20 men, none of them from the Filthy 13, but all good soldiers. We hit a German patrol at dawn. 6 soldiers, completely surprised. We killed them in seconds. Took their weapons, maps, kept moving. The bridge was our primary target. If we could blow that bridge, we'd cut off German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. That was the mission. Everything else was secondary. We found the bridge around 0600 hours. It was heavily defended. German machine gun nests, at least a platoon of infantry, maybe 40 men, and just 20 of us. I studied the situation. Direct assault would be suicide, but we had demolitions, we had surprise, and we had me. "Here's what we're going to do," I told the men. The bridge over the Douve River was a solid stone structure, maybe 60 feet long, wide enough for tanks. The Germans knew its value. They'd fortified both ends with sandbag positions, machine guns, and infantry. Smart defensive setup. But they made one mistake. They assumed any attack would come from the front. They weren't watching the river itself. I sent 10 men around to create a diversion. Give me 15 minutes, then open up with everything you've got. Make them think you're a whole company. I don't care if you hit anything, just make noise. I took the other 10 men with the demolition charges. We moved along the riverbank, staying low, using the morning mist for cover. The river was cold, maybe 4 feet deep. We waded through it, water up to our chests, holding our weapons and explosives above our heads. The Germans never saw us coming. We reached the bridge pilings. I set the charges myself, learned demolitions from the best instructors the Army had, placed them at the structural weak points, set the timers for 10 minutes. Enough time to get clear, not enough time for the Germans to find and disable them. Right on schedule, my diversion team opened fire. The sound was incredible. 20 rifles and a machine gun we'd captured, all firing at once. The Germans thought they were being attacked by a major force. They returned fire, focusing entirely on that threat. We climbed out of the river on the German side of the bridge. They still hadn't seen us. We were 50 yards behind their position, dripping wet, armed to the teeth. "Fix bayonets," I whispered. We charged, hit them from behind. Complete surprise. Hand-to-hand fighting, close and brutal. I shot 2 Germans with my .45, stabbed a third with my knife. Around me, my men were doing the same. Bayonets, rifle butts, fists. No mercy, no quarter. The Germans broke, started running. We let them go, had bigger problems. Those demolition charges were going to blow in about 3 minutes. "Everybody off the bridge! Move! Move!" We ran, hit the far side and dove into a ditch just as the charges detonated. The explosion was massive. Stone and wood and metal flying everywhere. When the smoke cleared, the bridge was gone. Just twisted wreckage and a gap in the river. One objective complete. But where were my men? Where was the filthy 13? Over the next 2 days I searched, fought Germans when I had to, avoided them when I could, linked up with more scattered paratroopers. By June 8th, I had maybe 40 men under my command, a scratch unit cobbled together from a dozen different companies. Then I heard about a group holding a farmhouse near Sainte-Mère-Église, surrounded by Germans refusing to surrender. Someone said they were crazy, painted up like Indians. That had to be them. I took 20 men and fought our way to that farmhouse. Germans had it under siege, maybe 100 of them. We hit their flank, drove them back, broke through to the building. And there they were, 8 of the filthy 13, alive. Painted faces dirty and smeared, Mohawks matted with blood and sweat, but alive and fighting. Jack Agnew saw me first. "Jake, about damn time you showed up." "Had to blow up a bridge first," I said. "You boys been having fun?" "Killed maybe 30 Krauts," George Radica replied, grinning despite a nasty cut across his forehead. "Lost Thompson and Myers. Germans got them on the drop." 2 of our 13 gone. The pain hit me hard, but I couldn't show it. Not now. We had work to do. "Where are the others?" I asked. "Don't know. Scattered all over France, I guess. Maybe dead, maybe fighting. We're it for now." We held that farmhouse for another day. The Germans wanted it bad. It overlooked a road they needed for reinforcements. They attacked 3 times. We beat them back each time, used every trick we knew. Booby traps, ambushes, sniping. Made them pay for every yard. American tanks finally broke through on June 9th. Shermans rolling down the road, infantry following. The most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. A captain from the 4th Infantry Division found us. Looked at our motley crew. Painted faces, Mohawks, mismatched uniforms and weapons, like we were creatures from another planet. "Who the hell are you people?" he asked. "Filthy 13, 101st Airborne," I replied. "Demolition section." "You're the ones who blew the Douve Bridge?" "Yes, sir." "Well, I'll be damned. We thought you were all dead. High Command wrote off most of the airborne as scattered or captured." "We don't scatter easy," I said, "and we definitely don't surrender." Over the next week, more of the filthy 13 trickled in. Joe Oleskovich showed up with a German Luger and a story about stealing a motorcycle. Chuck Plata walked out of the bocage with 2 wounded paratroopers he'd been protecting for 5 days. Robert Cohn appeared like a ghost, said he'd been living in the woods, picking off German patrols. By mid-June, we had 10 of the original 13 accounted for. Thompson, Myers, and Kowalski were confirmed dead, killed in action. Heroes everyone. We mourn them in our own way. Got drunk on captured German schnapps, told stories, toasted their memory. They had died doing what we all signed up to do, fighting for our country, fighting for each other. The brass wanted to split us up, reassign us to different units to fill gaps from casualties. Captain Shettle fought for us, said the filthy 13 was too valuable to break up. We'd accomplished every mission assigned, caused chaos behind German lines, and earned the right to stay together. They let us stay. Holland came next, Operation Market Garden, September 44. Another airborne drop, this time into the Netherlands. Our mission was to secure bridges and hold them for British armor advancing from the south. This time, the drop went better. Most of us landed within a mile of our zone. We linked up quick, moved fast, hit our objectives hard, blew up German positions, cleared obstacles, held our ground against counterattacks. The British armor never came, got bogged down, delayed. We held our positions for 3 days, waiting for support that didn't arrive. Finally had to withdraw when German reinforcements threatened to surround us. Then came December, the Ardennes Forest, the Battle of the Bulge, December 16th, 1944. We were supposed to be resting. The 101st Airborne had been pulled back to Mourmelon, France, for refitting after 2 months of continuous combat. We were exhausted, under strength, low on everything. Then the Germans launched their winter offensive, punched through American lines in the Ardennes Forest of Belgium. Hundreds of thousands of German troops, over 1,000 tanks, artillery that turned the sky black. Their goal was to split our forces, capture Antwerp, maybe win the war. The situation was desperate. Every available unit got thrown into the fight. On December 18th, we loaded onto trucks. Destination, Bastogne, Belgium. A critical crossroads town. If the Germans took Bastogne, they could split the Allied armies. We had to hold it. The filthy 13, what remained of us, rode in the back of a freezing truck through snow and ice. We had summer uniforms, no winter gear. The temperature was maybe 10 degrees. We were shaking so hard we could barely hold our weapons. "This is gonna be bad," Jack Agnew said. "Worse than Normandy?" someone asked. "Different kind of bad," I replied. "Normandy was chaos. This is going to be a siege." We reached Bastogne on December 19th. The town was already under artillery fire. Civilians were fleeing, soldiers were digging in. The German advance was so fast they'd surrounded us within 2 days. By December 21st, we were completely cut off. No supplies coming in, no reinforcements. Radio contact spotty at best. Just the 101st Airborne and some attached units, maybe 15,000 men, facing 4 German divisions. 50,000 troops with armor and artillery. They demanded our surrender on December 22nd. General McAuliffe's response became famous. "Nuts! We weren't surrendering. We were Americans. We don't quit." The filthy 13 got assigned to the perimeter defense, a section of forest northeast of town. Our job was simple: hold the line. Don't let the Germans break through. We dug foxholes in frozen ground, took hours with pickaxes to break through the ice and dirt. Each hole was barely big enough for 2 men, maybe 3 feet deep. Not much protection, but better than nothing. The cold was unbelievable, worse than the fighting. Frostbite got more men than bullets in those first days. Feet froze in boots, fingers froze to metal. Men lost toes, fingers, ears to the cold. We huddled together for warmth, shared what little we had. Food ran out fast. We were on quarter rations by December 23rd, 1K ration per day, melted snow for water, scavenged German supplies when we could. Some guys were eating bark and roots. Ammunition was critical. Artillery shells were rationed. We couldn't waste a single round. Every shot had to count. The Germans attacked on December 23rd. Dawn assault. Came out of the fog and snow like ghosts. Panzer tanks, infantry in white winter camouflage, hit our section hard. We held. Stopped their tanks with bazookas, precious few we had left. Killed their infantry with rifle fire. They pulled back, regrouped, attacked again in the afternoon. We held again. December 24th, Christmas Eve. The attacks intensified. The Germans wanted Bastogne before Christmas. Wanted to give Hitler a victory present. They threw everything at us. I was in a foxhole with Chuck Plowda. We'd been there for 3 days straight, hadn't slept more than an hour at a time. My feet were numb. Couldn't feel my fingers. Face was raw from cold and wind. "Merry Christmas, Jake," Chuck said with a bitter laugh. "Yeah, Merry Christmas." German artillery opened up. The barrage was the worst we'd experienced. Tree bursts, shells exploding in the treetops, sending shrapnel and wood splinters down on us. No protection in foxholes. Men were screaming, dying, bleeding. A shell hit 20 yards from our position. The blast threw me against the foxhole wall. My ears rang. Couldn't hear anything except a high-pitched whine. Chuck was hit, shrapnel in his chest and arm, bleeding bad. "Medic!" I screamed. But there were no medics. They were all busy or dead or wounded themselves. I grabbed a bandage from my kit, one of two I had left, pressed it against Chuck's chest wound. The blood soaked through immediately. "How bad?" he asked. "You'll live," I lied. "Just keep pressure on it." The infantry came after the barrage, German troops advancing through the smoke and snow, hundreds of them. We were maybe 20 men left in our section, most wounded, all exhausted. I grabbed my rifle, started firing, methodical, aim shots. Drop one German, acquire next target, fire. Reload. Fire. 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 They kept coming. We ran out of rifle ammunition, switched to pistols, then grenades. Threw our last few. Then it was bayonets and entrenching tools and bare hands. A German soldier jumped into our foxhole. Young kid, maybe 18, scared as hell. He had his rifle up, but his hands were shaking. I shot him with my .45, point blank. He fell backward into the snow. Another German appeared. I was out of ammunition. Grabbed my trench knife. We fought, grappling, stabbing, trying to kill each other. He was stronger, but I was meaner. Got my knife under his ribs. He gasped, went limp. I climbed out of the foxhole, stood up. The battle was raging all around. Men fighting and dying in the snow. Smoke and fire and screaming. This was it, the breaking point. We couldn't hold much longer. Too few men, too little ammunition, too exhausted. Then I heard it. The most beautiful sound in the world. Airplane engines. I looked up. Through the clouds, through the snow, I saw them. American planes. C-47s, dozens of them, coming in low over Bastogne. The supply drop. Parachutes blossomed across the sky. Red, white, blue, hundreds of them, falling like Christmas presents from heaven. Ammunition, medical supplies, food, everything we needed. The Germans saw them too. Started shooting at the planes, at the parachutes. Didn't matter. Our boys were getting through. Men were crying, laughing, shouting. We'd been saved. Not rescued. We'd still have to fight our way out. But we had supplies now. We had hope. I grabbed Chuck. "You hear that? That's Patton's Third Army. They're coming. We just gotta hold a little longer." "I can hold," he said through gritted teeth. "I can hold." We held. Patton's Third Army broke through on December 26th. Tanks rolling up the road, infantry following, artillery pounding German positions. The siege of Bastogne was over. We'd held for 8 days against impossible odds. The filthy 13 walked out of those woods looking like ghosts. Gaunt, frostbitten, covered in blood and dirt. Of the 10 men who'd survived Normandy, we lost 2 more at Bastogne. Robert Cohn took a sniper round on December 24th. Joe Oleskovich died from his wounds on Christmas Day. 8 of us left now. 8 out of the original 13. The casualties across the 101st were staggering. Over 2,000 men killed, wounded, or missing. But we'd stopped the German offensive, held the critical crossroads, changed the course of the battle. They gave us medals, silver stars, bronze stars, purple hearts. The 101st got a Presidential Unit Citation. We were heroes, they said. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a survivor carrying the weight of 5 dead brothers. The war continued. We fought through Germany in early '45, crossed the Rhine, pushed toward Berlin. The Germans were beaten, but they kept fighting. Desperate, fanatical resistance. We found the concentration camps, saw what the Nazis had done. The ovens, the mass graves, the living skeletons who'd somehow survived. That's when I understood why we'd fought. This wasn't just about territory or politics. This was about stopping evil. Pure, absolute evil. Jack Agnew said it best. Now I know why we jumped out of those planes, why we froze in Bastogne. This is why. Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945. VE Day, victory in Europe. The war was over. The filthy 13, the 8 of us who survived, gathered in a German town whose name I've forgotten. We drank captured German beer and toasted the 5 who didn't make it home. Thompson, Myers, Kowalski, Cohn, Oleskovich. Best damn soldiers I ever knew, I said. Best damn brothers, Chuck Plowda added. We cried. Tough guys, troublemakers, men who'd killed Germans with our bare hands. We sat there and cried for our lost brothers. I went home in the fall of '45, discharged with honors, full sergeant, multiple decorations, combat veteran of 3 campaigns. The half-breed kid from Oklahoma who couldn't get a fair shake in civilian life was now a war hero. Oklahoma threw me a parade. People who'd called me Injun and worse now wanted to shake my hand, buy me drinks, hear my stories. I smiled and played along, but inside I was still in France, still in Belgium, still hearing the screams and explosions. I tried civilian life, worked construction, tried ranching, took odd jobs. Nothing felt right. The world seemed small and pointless after what we'd been through. People complained about trivial things, bad weather, high prices, minor inconveniences. I wanted to scream at them. You don't know how good you have it. You didn't watch your friends die. You didn't freeze in foxholes, wondering if you'd see another sunrise. But I didn't. Just smiled and nodded and drank too much. The nightmares came every night. Falling through darkness over Normandy, fighting in the hedgerows, the bridge exploding, Bastogne frozen hell, the German kid I'd shot in the foxhole. I saw his face every time I closed my eyes. What they call PTSD now, we just called the shakes back then. A lot of veterans had it. We self-medicated with alcohol, tried to forget, pushed it down deep. I married, had kids, built a life. Worked hard, stayed out of trouble mostly. Became a productive citizen. The American dream, right? But part of me never left Europe. Part of me is still there with my brothers, still fighting, still young and wild and painted for war. The Filthy 13 became famous decades later. That war correspondent's photos from June 5th, '44, us with our Mohawks and war paint, those images became iconic. Hollywood made The Dirty Dozen in '67. Said it was inspired by us. They changed everything, made it fiction, but the core idea came from our story. I was proud of that. Proud that people remembered. But the movie got it wrong in important ways. We weren't criminals forced into suicide missions. We were volunteers who chose to fight. We weren't expendable. We were elite. Over the years, the survivors of the Filthy 13 stayed in touch. Reunions every few years. Our numbers dwindled. Chuck Plowda died in '73, George Radecka in '81, Jack Agnew in '92. One by one, age took what the Germans couldn't. I'm the last one now, last of the Filthy 13. 90-some years old, body broken down, but mind still sharp. Still remember every detail, every face, every battle. People ask me what it was like, being a paratrooper, leading the Filthy 13, jumping into Normandy, fighting at Bastogne. I tell them the truth. It was terrifying. It was brutal. It was the hardest thing I ever did. But it was also the most important. We stopped Hitler. We liberated Europe. We saved millions of lives. We proved that ordinary Americans, troublemakers, misfits, and rebels, could become extraordinary when our country needed us. The Filthy 13 weren't saints. We drank, we fought, we broke rules. But when it mattered, when American lives depended on us, when freedom hung in the balance, we stood up. We did our duty. We fought with everything we had. That's what I want people to remember. Not the medals or the fame or the Hollywood movies, but that 13 ordinary men became brothers, became warriors, became heroes not because we sought glory, but because we refused to let our country down. 5 of us died for that. Thompson, Myers, Kowalski, Cohn, Oleskovich. They gave everything. The rest of us lived with their memory every day of our lives. Was it worth it? The pain, the sacrifice, the nightmares that never end? Look around at the free world we helped create. Look at the generations who grew up without knowing Nazi occupation. Look at the children and grandchildren who never had to face what we faced. Yeah, it was worth it. I'm proud to have been one of the Filthy 13. Proud to have served with the finest men I ever knew. Proud to be an American soldier who stood when standing seemed impossible. We were troublemakers who became heroes, misfits who became legends. 13 men who proved that courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being terrified and fighting anyway. That's our legacy. That's our story. Before I go, please hit that subscribe button. Share this story. These memories must survive. These men must be remembered. The truth must be told. Thompson, Myers, Kowalski, Cohn, Oleskovich, and all the men who didn't come home. We owe them that much. God bless the Filthy 13. God bless the 101st Airborne. God bless every American who ever put on the uniform and stood for freedom. And God bless the United States of America.